the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
You're subscribed and checking out Matt on his new Georgia-focused program, Georgia, the voice of college football. Matt, week 2 of the college football playoff rankings coming out this week. I want to do this before we dive into how we did here in week 11, sir. What are your predictions on where the Vols and Dogs land here in the prediction model coming out of this weekend's games?
I think I meant to copy and paste this into our doc, sir, but I did not. So you want me to start from the top? Because I personally, what's the phrase, like misery loves company, that sort of thing. I got a lot of satisfaction out of the Miami Hurricanes getting upset this weekend. I was just more not from like a Georgia fan, like hater or anything, more from like Indiana and BYU's perspective. I just feel like there was no justification for Miami getting more hype than Indiana and Purdue Indiana and BYU in my opinion. Like, they were right there, undefeateds that have, like, whatever, say what you want about their resume, but they're doing it, right? So I enjoyed that. Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets getting a big, just dominating the state of Florida this year. So I think, obviously, you're going to have Oregon and Ohio State at 1 and 2, right? I think you got to go Indiana BYU at 3 and 4 and keep the undefeateds up there, because Ohio State still has that good win on their resume of Penn State. So I think that you can justify their one loss, and the one loss being to the number 1 team in the country that's just looked dominant week after week. But then I have the Tennessee Volunteers coming in at 5, and this is where I differ from
ahead of Texas,
where the AP poll is. Yeah, I put Tennessee, Penn State, and Texas at 5, 6, 7. Those one-loss teams. And I just still don't understand what the AP came out today too. And I want to say Texas is at 3 now, and is Penn State 4?
Yes, Texas at 3.
And Tennessee.
I know in coaches, 6. Tennessee went up to 4 in the coaches poll.
Okay, AP's got Tennessee at 6, and Alabama's at 9. Tennessee has a win over the number 9 team in the country. Like, Texas and Penn State don't have a win over a current ranked team. Like, I don't understand why this is not a conversation. Like, I have no idea what Penn State and Texas, like, what their justification is for being this top. Like, they dominated Florida. Like, that's a team that's given some top 10 teams close games, but, they also are what they are at this point in the season. They're just like a shell of themselves. And Georgia doesn't look as good as they did a few weeks ago. So it's like, that's Texas's loss, is to a Georgia team that we feel like is worse. Tennessee's win is over an Alabama team that is starting to look better and better. Ohio State has the win over Penn State. Penn State, whatever, I think their Big Ten schedule, they at least have Illinois was ranked at the time, fell out. It feels like Penn State's played a little bit tougher schedule than Texas, but Texas really doesn't have anything on their resume to justify being number 3 right now, especially ahead of a couple undefeated teams. And then, so that's why I have at 5, 6, 7, Tennessee, Penn State, Texas. And then I think you have the 2-loss SEC teams with Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, 8, 9, 10. I think, Alabama and Ole Miss beat Georgia. It's pretty easy. I think Alabama's resume has... What is the difference in Alabama and Ole Miss's resume? I feel like Alabama's the win over LSU. That's probably the difference there. I think that's probably better than Ole Miss's second best win. So, and then I have Miami at 11, and I would have Notre Dame at 12. But obviously that 12 spot would go to Boise State, who I have at Boise State at 15. Just to go all the way, I have SMU 13, A&M 14. Boise State 15, and Army at 16. Like, if Army's undefeated, do they go in ahead of Boise State? Like, how do they not? Like, what is Boise State?
Well, I think they would, because that includes a win over Notre Dame. Army plays Notre Dame in 2 weeks. So,
is that right?
Yeah, so if they beat Notre Dame, then yeah, they're getting that spot.
They're absolutely. Yeah, they have to get it. And what do you do with the Army-Navy game? That you're going to just add an extra game, like a week, give yourself like a week to prepare for the playoff game, like the following week?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing that game no matter what. So that's just a wild layer to this. And people just forgot. I just overlooked. Did you see Navy lost to Rice last week? I just completely missed that. Navy's got 2 losses now.
Oh, wow.
Rice fired their coach midseason. But I will say, here's what's going to be interesting about the CFP rankings this week. And we'll get into this week's games, Matt Green. So Georgia was at 3 this week. Miami was at 4. Tennessee was at 7. BYU at 9. Bama at 11. Ole Miss was all the way down at 16. So I don't know what's going to happen here because they're going to have to really, this is going to be some nonsense, I think, here in week 2, because Ole Miss was way too far down at 16, this first iteration here. Alabama blows out LSU, who's at 15, so that's not really a big win in the eyes of how the committee ranked LSU coming into this game. They did what they were supposed to do in Death Valley. Like, we'll get into that game
I don't
later.
know, though. 42-13 on the road.
But what I'm saying is, like, they weren't high. It wasn't like a huge top 10 victory or anything. Like, the way that I'm doing it based on their logic, because they had LSU at 15, Bama at 11. And then you move it, like Tennessee, I'm curious. I think they're going to be, because I think Penn State showed some stuff, and it would be weird for Tennessee to flop over Penn State, but I think they should. I think Tennessee's been better than Penn State this year and shown more than Penn State, similar to what you've talked about. But I think it's going to go Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Tennessee 5 is probably your top 5. But then I think it's going to get really
moving everyone up.
But then I think it gets
right
weird.
Where they are with Miami and Georgia getting kicked out.
But how high up does Ole Miss launch here with this win over who they had as number 3 a week ago? And how far does Georgia fall? Because that's going to be really interesting to me. Is part of what's going to be complicated here for the committee is the committee is going to get in trouble here with the SEC. Like, that is something I am certain of here in the next couple of weeks, because Tennessee, I just feel like, is going to get screwed here with the head-to-head against Alabama. If they lose to Georgia on Saturday and it's close and they lose, let's say, like 20-17 to Georgia, they're going to, they will come into this game probably in the top 5 in CFP rankings. Georgia, they'll fall to probably, I'm going to guess, somewhere around 10 to 12, somewhere in that range. Then if they lose close, they beat Vanderbilt and then they beat UTEP. I don't know how they fall enough. How are you going to hurt them? Like, how do you push them down from number 5 to out of your rankings and a flip team to Ole Miss, who you had at 16 this week?
So who are you talking about? Tennessee being at 5?
Yeah, and they're going to have to push them out. Like, the logic of Tennessee slide at Bama leapfrogging Tennessee is an Ole Miss moving up, skyrocketing from 16 into the field too. I just think they're going to come in. We're going to look at the end of the year, the regular season here, and be like, what was the point of these rankings? Because clearly there's no logic, week to week logic here. Because right now, if Tennessee loses close to Georgia, they cannot fall out. Bama's too far behind, and Bama isn't going to get you won the head to head. Like, there's just no way around it. But because Alabama blew out LSU on the road at night, they're going to get some credit here. But I think there's a real chance both Tennessee and Bama finish at 10-2, and Bama gets that 4th spot. Because I think Ole Miss, as long as they went out, they're in. I think Ole Miss is going to be in here too. But then you're looking at Texas, who I think is going to win out. So you have Texas at 1. Georgia, if they beat Tennessee, they're in. That's 2. And then Ole Miss, I think, like I said, is a lock at 3. You're only getting 4 SEC teams in right now. Unless Notre Dame loses to, like, Army or something, maybe you get 5. If you get 5, then none of this matters. I mean, I know Eli Drinkwitz throwing the Mizzou stuff out there, which is just not the case.
Still in there.
Yeah,
still in there.
I guess technically, but no, you're not. There's no chance. Look at where the committee is. Like, where is Ole Miss or Mizzou in this one? Mizzou was down at 24. You're not moving up. Like, you don't. It's not happening. So I just look at this, and I don't think they're going to be able to logic their way out of pushing Tennessee behind Alabama based on where the rankings are this week and last week, and they're going to do it anyway. Like, if Tennessee wins out or only loses to Georgia and Bama wins out, both finish at 10-2. Don't you feel like Bama's going to get that spot over them for that final 4th SEC spot? Because that's what I think is going to happen, because they just blew out LSU the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It's the timing of the loss, I think, is going to hurt Tennessee if that's the case.
Yeah, because that's a great point. If Tennessee beats Alabama this last week of the season, there's no question.
Ole Miss and Alabama with those wins over Georgia head to head, and then if Georgia's got the win over Tennessee, then Tennessee's probably the one that's sitting in 4th place among those 4 teams. So Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe because you probably can't really justify having Georgia jump Ole Miss or Alabama, even if Georgia were to
Right.
just blow out Tennessee. Like number 10 blowing out who might be number 4, number 5.
Yeah.
That's usually enough to jump you like 5 spots, so I don't know. I don't know what happens, or if it's a close loss for Tennessee, and then having the head-to-head win over Alabama, where Ole Miss would only have played one of those other 3 teams as well. And I guess so it's going to be tricky. The SEC championship is just game is getting even messier, like with Texas.
The tiebreaker rules are insane. Like they made this so complicated. This is just a mess.
It could be very clean, and Texas could win their last. What do they have? Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M, and Tennessee could beat Georgia and Vanderbilt, and that's it. And we got 2 one-loss teams in the SEC championship. Right now, we don't really know what to expect of Georgia, so it's hard to think that this team can even to get to the SEC championship. So I don't know. I think there's that dude on Reddit that has the went with all the scenarios, some sort of calculator. I'll have to find it again and see after this week's results. Like if we get just kind of chalk the rest of the way, which we never will because it's the SEC, but I'm really curious. I don't know what it's going to be if we can somehow have a 7-way tie. Like I think that is still on the table with with a lot of teams only having 2 conference games left.
Well, and it's because you didn't go to 9 conference games when you brought them in. That was a joke. Like you should have gone to 9. You're not in this spot if you go to 9.
So who are we looking at right now? So Texas. So we have 5 contenders is what we're saying kind of for the playoff right now. A&M kind of being that 6th one on the outside.
A&M would have to upset Texas at the end. They have to win out. And
that's definitely possible because A&M can get to the SEC championship. That's the thing. Like they're in control of their own destiny to get to the SEC championship. So that's kind of the wild card there.
True.
So despite having the extra non-conference loss. But yeah, you look at Texas among the other big 4 we're talking about, they only played Georgia. Ole Miss only played Georgia. Tennessee will have played Georgia and Alabama. Right. And then Alabama will have played Georgia and Tennessee, and Georgia will have played all 4 of the other ones, which is just insane. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to have to do to sort this all out, but it's going to be crazy.
Tennessee right now, if you're a Tennessee fan, you have to be looking at Ole Miss at Florida, hoping Lagway plays, and that's a possibility there. And then the Egg Bowl weirdness, because I think Ole Miss is the one you have targeted here. Obviously, if you beat Georgia this weekend, you're in no matter what. But that's a see it to believe it, because these games have not been competitive since the first half of 2021. So,
and like, what do you do with the loser of that championship game if you're sitting here with 5 potential playoff teams in this conference?
Yeah.
And someone gets that 3rd loss in the SEC championship. Are they going to be punished for that? Like,
yes.
I don't know. I'd have a hard time. And also,
I think it depends on who it is, right? Like if it's A&M, maybe. If it's Georgia or
A&M
Texas,
is their 4th loss or 3rd loss. Yeah. I don't know. It's I'm gonna have a hard time. I'd have a hard time if I was a team that got punished because we made the SEC championship. Like we did something.
Maybe it depends on how you lose. Like everything is just going to be like, what does it feel like coming out of it? Did you get blown out? Did you feel like you didn't belong? I don't know.
It might be more justified this year than it's ever been, because I was always annoyed in the BCS era when that team that loses the SEC championship goes to the Capital One Bowl, and then that team that's ranked like number 7 in the SEC that didn't play in the SEC championship goes to the Sugar Bowl while the other team's playing in the national championship. I was always annoyed by that, but it's like that's pretty low stakes. Like the college football playoff, like this is how we're crowning the national champion. Like it might be more justified this year to do it that way because, okay, if Tennessee gets that extra loss in the SEC championship, like, well, they didn't actually play Ole Miss, so I guess we can justify putting Ole Miss in instead of them, and maybe like that's how they'll their mind, the logic will work. I'm not sure, but like in the past, it's like, what do you mean Florida's going? Like we won the SEC East. Like we're the team. Like we won the East, they didn't. We're the one that should be getting whatever postseason accolades there are. So I'm interested to see what they do with that. I hope it is messy, because I think messy means the messier it is probably means Georgia beats Tennessee as a 2-loss team right now. But well, I have no idea what it's going to end up being. Like, it's crazy that we really don't know what the SEC championship game is going to be sitting here going into week 12.
For sure. We'll leave it there, Matt Green. Let's get into our week 11 pickup.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.